Let's say you get a call from someone that you may have had sexual relations with recently or even a long time ago. And it just seems a little odd about why they'd be calling you and wanting to talk about it. Believe it or not, there are situations where law enforcement will coach an accuser into making a recorded call with law enforcement present and feeding that accuser notes about questions to ask. Law enforcement, at least in Minnesota, doesn't have to tell you about this, and the caller doesn't have to tell you that they're recording the call, in Minnesota at least. So I've had some cases where this has happened, and sometimes it's been a couple days or a couple weeks after a sexual encounter, and other times it's been many years after a sexual encounter. The reason that law enforcement will sometimes have an accuser do this is to try to get you to admit to having sexual intercourse or a sexual act with someone, and then usually something about admitting that they were blacked out or they were too drunk to remember it, or that you used force or something else that might make it a crime. Anything that has to do with either their inability to consent or flat out lack of consent to a sexual act, whether that's actual intercourse or something less but still a sexual act, whether that be touching or different types of sexual encounters that people can have. So you got to be aware of that, and the reason is here's where that can walk you into danger. So someone you've had relations with before may try to call you and again have this call recorded, and they want you to admit to certain things. They may say, well, do you remember when we slept together back in March of 2015? Yeah, I remember that. Okay, well, I was really drunk at the time. And you may feel, especially if you want to be a gentleman about things, that's pretty normal, and you're not here to try to invalidate someone's feelings. So even though you disagree that they were drunk or weren't consenting or that they were impaired or whatever, you don't want to necessarily get into an argument about it. So rather than, although your mind might be saying, the heck if you were the aggressor here, or no you weren't drunk at all, you had 2 drinks or something like that. If that's the situation, there's plenty of reasons why someone may not want to get in an argument about that over the phone. You're not trying to hurt their feelings. There's no point in arguing about it in the past. If it didn't happen that way, what do you have to gain by arguing it, you're thinking? And you're trying to be a nice person and consider if someone's, even if their feelings are completely different than what the facts were, there's reasons why you may not want to get into an argument like that, and you're just choosing to take the high road about it. The danger about that is, though, of course, is that this person could be recording the call with or without law enforcement being a part of that, and they are just, even if you say, oh, I'm sorry you felt that way, or geez, I had no idea, or something like that, then they look at that as an admission of guilt on your part, even if that's not what you intended. And now you're in a position, if that happens, where you may be charged with a crime, and now you're trying to explain that to a jury. You've had to hire a lawyer and all of those sorts of things, and you risk that if the jury thinks, what if the jury may very well understand why you did that and believe with a presumption of innocence that you're not guilty there and that it hasn't been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's no guarantees about that. What if a jury gets it wrong? What if a jury decides, you know what, he said what he said, and we're just going to look at that and not the reasons behind it, or something like that. So you're putting yourself in a dangerous position. The problem is, of course, that there are cases where law enforcement will run with this, will not go investigate the other facts, and it's very difficult for you because if you say something like that, what are you able to do to go back in time to prove your innocence? You don't have a requirement to prove your innocence under the criminal law, but the reality is that it feels that way to you. And yes, juries will be reminded about it by a judge that that's not how it works. But again, you've created you're in a whole lot of trouble that way because you're having to consult with a lawyer, you're having to pay a lawyer under investigation, or quite a bit of fee if it goes to a criminal charge here. I just want people to be aware of that, because there are times where there are false allegations. There are times where somebody recreates facts in the back of their mind about the way something was And it wasn't that way at the time. But these are dangers that can happen. If you get a call about something, about a prior sexual act, just beware that you don't, although there's a temptation, of course, to behave like a gentleman and not to invalidate other people's feelings, even if their feelings about something changed over time. Reality is that can wind you in a whole lot of trouble. So you got to stick to your guns. You got to stick to your facts. You're not required to talk about these things. You're not required to go down that road of a discussion there. And it could be dangerous to do so. But if you choose to continue on with a discussion about that, it is very important for you to stick to your facts there and understand that at the end of the day, while maybe some feelings may be hurt or something, if your truth is different than what that person on the phone is saying, you got to stick to your truth to protect yourself. If you have any other questions about criminal sexual conduct allegations or investigations, either for you or a family member, I'm criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga. I've got a free tip sheet that I can give out to you. You can contact me at 612-339-5844. You can find me at arrestedmn.com, or you can email me at ryan@arrestedmn.com. I almost forgot to add here, there's a reason why I have this buffalo behind me, and there's a reason for that, and that's this. When people are facing serious criminal accusations, they feel like their whole future is at stake, their life is ahead of them, they have a lot to lose. It can get overwhelming. Right over the Rocky Mountains, when a storm is coming, they see it come over the mountains, and the buffalo turn toward the storm. They put their head down and they start marching right into it, because they know that if they walk into it, they're going to walk through the storm and they're going to get through the other side of it. Buffalo are different than cows that way. What the cows will do is they'll start walking away from the storm, and then what happens is they're walking away from the storm catches up to them, and then they're walking through the storm, not going through the other side, but with it, and they're prolonging the amount of time that they're in the storm. And so the tip is that the buffalo will see the storm coming, and the buffalo will walk into the storm and lessen the amount of time that they're there, and of course they'll get through it. And that's the reason that I really admire the buffalo, and sometimes I've got to tell my clients, be like the buffalo. Sometimes I got to remind myself of that in my daily life as well. And so that's what this buffalo is here behind me for, and I hope that tip can help you get through a tough time if you or a family member are dealing with that.